Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to build a cleaning service landing page website using Nextjs and just Tailwind CSS. As you can see, we have multiple sections within our landing page. In our hero section here, we have a discover our cleaning service section. We have a rooms and results section with a little hover effect on our cards. We have a testimonial section where we have data where we are displaying testimonies from our customers. We have a contact us section, and we also have a footer on our site as well. Our website is not only viewable on desktops, but as you can see, it's fully responsive as well. Right here we have a responsive nav menu that we can open and close, and as we scroll on our page, our sections transition to either a single or a dual column grid layout. So it is fully responsive regardless of the device that you may be viewing it on. So if this is something you're interested in building, stay tuned and I'm gonna walk you through the setup of this step by step, and I hope you. Okay, so let's start out by creating our Nextjs app. So we'll type in npx create next app at latest, and I'm gonna call my project my app. Yes, and we will not use TypeScript. We'll say yes to ESLint, yes to Tailwind, no to the SRC, yes to app router, import alias, we'll say no. And let's go ahead and install React icons. React icons, yes. I don't think we'll need anything else for this project, but if we do, we can always install it later. And we'll just type clear, close this out, and we'll clean up our directory a little. Make this a little bigger. There we go. So in our app directory, let's go into the global CSS and let's remove everything from here. And we'll go into our layout and let's remove the custom font. We'll update the title. We'll call this EKS cleaning, and we'll remove the custom class name off the body. Okay, and here we'll go and let's just remove this main tag and let's replace it with our own. And we'll just type in home page here, save this file. Now let's go ahead and start with some basic structure. We'll create a components folder. And I'm gonna start with a header folder. And I'm going to create a footer folder, and we'll do a footer.js file and just do RFCE to get a template. And I'm basically just want to put a little bit of content on the screen before we start our local host. And inside of the header file, let's add a page.js. No, header.js. And here we will change the tag from div to header. And we'll save it. And we'll add these two items into our page.js file. Yes, that's what we'll do. So instead of it being home page here, we'll go header, bring in that component, and we'll bring in the footer component as well. Save it, and now let's run our local host just to see what we get. be sure, if you closed out your terminal like me, be sure npm run dev. Be sure that you're in the directory that you installed the app, otherwise it won't work. And then hit enter. And once it comes up, we'll start it on our local host and we'll see what we get. And we see that it is working. We see that it's saying VKS cleaning. We have our header and our footer here. Okay, so now with this cared for, we'll go ahead and work on some global styling. So now we will update our global colors, and we'll go back and forth in between this file as we're building out the site. So let's go into our Tailwind config file. We can move this out of the way. Let's get a better view. And we can remove the, so how do we want to do? Let's start with our colors first. And we'll go colors. And we'll add that there. And we want to start with primary. And the first primary color is going to be this. And I generally get my colors from our secondary. Any site that does a free color generator, colors.co or coolors.co is a pretty good site to use. But any site will work as long as you, as long as it kind of gives you the colors that you're looking for. We'll call this light gray. And here, this one will be A. And we'll call this one a dark gray. This is probably more of a cool gray. I'm not a design person, so just bear with me. And all of this code will be in the description below, so you're more than welcome to grab it and use it wherever you see fit. Gotta add the pound there. Yeah. And we'll call this one dim. Uh-oh. And almost getting to the fun stuff. 736B60. Okay, now the next thing we want to add are images, and the first image we're going to add is for our header. So we'll call this a header image. And our header image, we want it to have a linear gradient over the image, so that you have that as the background, but it's not so prominent on the page that you can't see the links or some of the text that's on the window. So we'll add in a linear gradient now. I guess I could have just used what was already here versus retyping this out, but it's okay. Okay. And outside of it, we want to add the URL. And I have a folder. I have an image in my public folder here. Header /png. And if I save it, now make sure we have everything right here. RGBA, yep, looks good. Looks good. Okay. So if we save this and go to the header, put in a class name of BG for background header image, save, and here we go. We see it listed here. So we'll go ahead and start, since we already have this set up, we'll go ahead and build out our header first. Okay, so before we work on our header, let's add in a custom font, and this is totally optional, but I want to use a custom font here of Senzel. I think I'd put this in. Yeah. Okay, that took, and I want to set the background color to EDE 79, just to give it a little bit of color. Okay, all right, so now we can go to our header, and we'll go ahead and add on to the background here. Let's say BG cover, BG center, BG no repeat. I think that's how you do the no repeat. Yeah, that should be it. I want to set the minimum height to the screen, flex as a column, and overflow hidden. Okay, so what this is doing is basically positioning the header image, and this is setting the background to cover the viewport of this image, of this section, excuse me. We don't want the image to repeat. We want the header, the minimum height, to be the height of the screen. We want to give the content in our header a direction of flex. Excuse me, we want to call flex, and then we want to give it a direction of column, and we want to set the overflow to hidden. Our header is going to have a few different components within it. We'll have a banner here at the top. We'll have the nav bar, and we'll have some text just saying something related to the business. So we'll start with the top portion of the header, and we'll give it a div, class name. We'll call this, we'll just say it's the header top, and we'll set the background here to be white, and we want the minimum height of it to be 48 pixels. Like that, 48 pixels, yep. And we want it to be flex, the item centered, and we'll keep the font as is. We'll go give it a little padding on the Y and save it, and that's what we have. Okay, not bad. And I think we'll set something to be inside of it here. So so we'll go another div, class name. We'll go container, and we'll give it a maximum width of, we'll go 1300 pixels. 1300. And we'll set the margin to auto. And large screens, we want flex. And we'll make sure that it's justified between. Okay. Yep, okay. Alright. And now let's style the left portion of the header. So we'll go another div. Let's move this back a little bit. We'll go class name, and we'll go header top left, flex column, items center, small, we want it to be flex direction, it's not like it's row, flex row. Justify center. Yep. Large, we want to justify start. Okay. Yep. All right, yes. So I think before we dive even further into this, let's clean up, let's organize this a little bit more, because this header file could be fairly large. So I'm going to create a folder inside of the header folder named top header, and we'll add another folder inside of it named navbar, and one more named hero. These are going to be the components that make up the header. That way, inside of the header file, we'll just have the components that make up the header, and they'll be displayed. And then this additional code will go, well, the code for the top bar will go in its own directory. Same for the nav bar and the hero. And if we want to make changes, it'll be a lot easier, and we won't have so much code in just the header. It'll be a lot easier to read. So let's clean this up a little bit. So we have the top header file, and in it we'll add in the code for this top nav bar that we're going to have here. So we actually can cut most of this out. Let me see, container flex. Yeah, we did take all of this out, and let's just cut it and go into our top header and add a file, header.js, and we'll go change this to a section, and let's take this class name and we'll remove it from here. Here, we can get rid of this one, get rid of this one, and we'll just write top header here, save this file, and go into the header, and let's import it. Alright, cool, it works. Alright, so we can go into the top header, and then let's continue the code in this file. That way it's organized and we can update it if need be. So we have it identified that this will be the top left. So the first thing we'll do is we'll add another div, give it a class name of flex. We'll give it a little bit of padding on the y-axis. And now we'll need to bring in some React icons. We'll need a few. We'll go ahead and bring those in now. So we'll bring in the FA map marker, and FA phone. And this is going to come from React icons /FA. I think this is ALT. Yep. And then FA phone. Yeah, that's it. And then here we'll go FA, yep, map marker. And we'll give this one a class name. First, we'll set the width of it to 10 pixels. Let's just see what this looks like. Get something on the screen. Yep, there we go. And we'll give it a little bit of margin on the x-axis. Do we want to go text light? Yeah. No, it should be text. Yes, text light. And then we'll do cursor pointer. And we'll set the alt to map here. And if we save it, okay, oh, looks good. And we'll span here. Experience near you. Just some wording here. And okay, and let's style this a little bit. We'll give it opacity 60. Lighten it up a little bit. We'll make the font light. Okay. Text small. Yep. Alright. And we actually will need the exact same thing almost for we're going to put a little phone over here as well to contact us. So we'll go with another div. The class name. We'll go flex. Medium. Make sure we care for the responsiveness because this one is going to be a little larger than the phone. 72 pixels here. Okay. And we'll add the phone here. Yep. Class name. And we'll set the 3 next to text light. That looks like, yeah, looks good. Cursor pointer. Alt of phone. And we'll give it a span here. We'll go 1, 2, 3. And style this a little bit. And we'll go text. We'll go text primary. That's cool. And we'll make the opacity 60. Okay, that works. Alright, not bad, that works. Okay, so now I want to add some links, or I want to add some social media icons. They won't actually link to a social media page because we don't have one set up for the site, but I do want to have it here just for styling and for convenience for the customer. Excuse me. So underneath this div, because this one is for the left portion of this container, we'll go here and we'll add a unordered list. So in the unordered list, let's add a class name, and we want it flex, item centered, justify center, and we'll give some padding on the y-axis. And this is basically styling the unordered list. And then now we'll work on the list items. And last name here, give it a width of 3, height of 3. And like I said, these won't actually be, and we did see it adjust here, these won't be live, but we'll go ahead and put them in link tags, and that imported next, okay? And then in it here, we'll give the link a class name, and we want it to have a little hover effect. We'll set the opacity to 80, and transition to be duration to be 300. And this is just to give it a little bit of styling as we hover over the icon, and we'll need to set a href as well. Let's do it like that. And this one will be for, we'll have I think Instagram, YouTube, yeah. So let's go ahead and bring those in now. Excuse me. Import Instagram, yep, and Facebook. Yep. We'll import. I think it is. Is it logo? This one, the first one could be Instagram. Is it again? Yeah, Instagram. And I think I have, Instagram. And let's give this one a class name, text. Red 500. Red mask about 900. And that should be it. So we can bring this in. Cool. Alright. And we basically could just copy this again and just adjust it. So we'll grab the list item, copy it again, and we'll need to update this one from Instagram. Let me see if, make sure this, so I think it is YouTube. Let's make sure, yep, it is. And for YouTube, we can, yeah, that could be the same thing for YouTube. And let's add in one more, Facebook, I think it was, we just did. Facebook, and I know this will probably be blue. This should work. Yep. This. Okay. All right. And what does it look like here? And on the desktop, this is what it looks like. And in mobile, we saw that this is what it looks like. So I think we are good to go with our top header. We probably could have cleaned this up a little bit. There's a little bit of redundancy. We may go back and refactor it, but I'll definitely make sure we refactor the or that we keep the nav bar as clean as possible, so to speak. So let's move on to the nav bar now that we've cared for the top header. And our nav bar, we'll have a mobile nav bar and we'll have a desktop. So this will be a lengthier build as well, but it'll have a logo, excuse me, a logo, a menu button, and the menu item components, and those components will go in our navbar.js file. So we'll go ahead and add that now. And we'll need to bring in use client for this one. And let's go RFCE. Let's change this to nav. Okay. And let's let's just add it here. Make sure that we see it. Yep, there it is right there. So let's start with our nav bar. This will probably be the most time-consuming portion because there's quite a bit of code involved. But the first thing we want to do with the nav bar is add our logo, which will be on the left-hand side of the nav. So in the nav bar folder, let's add a file named logo.js. And inside of it, we'll start with the boiler template. And we don't want to do that. We definitely do not want to do that. So we'll remove the word logo, and here we'll add in a link because this is going to link back to our home page, and we'll give it a href, and we'll give it a class name. We'll give the text, let's try 28 pixels and see what that looks like. 28 pixels, and we'll have the text color be primary, and that should be it. And then here we'll go VKS and add a span and cleaning, and let's import this here for now just to see what it looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like, and I think I'm gonna change this to text white. Okay, not bad. Yeah, that'll work. And that cares for the logo. And I think what we'll do now is, before we work on the menu items and the menu button, let's just add the framework or the container, the styling for the nav bar itself. So inside of the nav, we'll add a class name, and I'll call it header main, and we'll give some padding on the x-axis. We'll call it flex1, and be sure to add flex. And if we save it, we see we get a little bit of indenture. This is because of the padding that we're giving it here. And inside of this div, or inside of this nav, excuse me, let's add a div, and we can just remove this for now. This div will be the container. So this will be the div that holds all of the nav items. So we'll call this, or all of the items in our nav bar. We'll give this a class name of container, and we'll give it a max width. And I think we had it at 1300 pixels. 1300. And we want to make sure it's centered. So set that to auto, flex color. Save it so we know we won't see anything because I removed the logo. Let's bring this back a little bit. And now we will add another div here. And this div is going to care for the list items in the container. This div is going to care for, it's going to care for the logo and the menu items that we will create after we have, as we move along in the video. So we want to give this some padding on the y-axis. And in the medium view, we'll call it flex. And in the medium view, we want it flex with, with justify between. Okay, so now we'll need another div, and this will primarily care for the placement of our menu button and the logo. So we'll go flex just to 5. Yeah, there we go. Justify between, and here we'll have our logo that we just created, and we see it here. And this will be a good time to go ahead and build our additional components, the menu button and the menu items. So in the navbar folder, let's add a file named menubutton.js, and we'll give it the template here, and we can just have a div. All right, and we'll add one more file, and we'll name this one menuitem.js, and we'll go RFC here as well, and I just like to have a div to start with. Okay, so we'll start with the menu button. So the menu button, just to kind of give a quick overview of it, will be the button that'll toggle the unordered list of links or menu items that we create when it's in the mobile view. So when you press the button, we want the list to appear, and then we want, in place of the menu button, we want an X to be in its place so that you can close the menu out. And then once you press the X, we want the menu to close. So we'll start with we have our component here, and let's go ahead and import the icons that we'll need. So we'll need a menu icon, and we'll need a X icon, and this is going to come from React Icons, and I think it's FI. Yep, FIX, FI menu. Okay, and this menu button is going to take two props. The props is going to take this menu open and toggle menu, and these will be managed by state in the navbar, but we'll pass in the condition or the state of the menu button, and then this will control whether the unordered list appears or not. So inside of the return statement, we'll need a button. So we actually can just change this to a button. I don't think we need a fragment or a div there. I think we could just go button, and in the button we'll give it a class name. I tell you what, we will add fragments just to be safe, and this is so certain components can't be, so we'll add in the fragment, and inside of the class name we'll give it a text of primary, and this is just for styling. When it's in the medium view, we want it hidden, a Z index of 10, and we want the size of it to be a 3XL. And we'll give this a on-click method of toggle menu that we haven't created just yet, but we'll go ahead and add it now, and we'll create it in our navbar component, the file navbar itself. And then inside of here, we'll need to just use a little bit of JavaScript and just say if the menu is open, we want to show the X because that represents the closing of it. And if it's not open, or do we want to show the menu button, the menu icon itself, meaning that the menu is not open, and we don't need, well, I don't know why I had that there. This is supposed to be this. There we go. And we can save the file. This looks pretty good. And now let's just go ahead and add in our menu items. So these are the menu links. Instead of having so much of the same code for each menu link, thought it'd make more sense just to make a menu item or a menu link component, and in this way it can loop over the object file that we'll create in the navbar of the menu links, and it'll loop over each object, and it'll use the key value pairs to display the text and the href for it. So we'll just add the menu link here. So we'll start with importing link from Next, and we have a div. We can remove this div, and in place this is actually going to be a list item. Okay, all right, so before we style this list item, our menu item is going to actually be a prop, and we want to pass in some information to it. So we'll pass in the href, and the text. And inside of the list item, we'll give it a class name, and we'll add some styling to it. Padding on the bottom, border bottom of 1 pixel. What we want it solid, and medium screens. We want to go with a padding on the Y of 0, and we can remove out the border there. Yeah, okay. Border none. Okay. And in it, the list item, we want to pass in a link, and we've already imported it. So links must have a href, and we want to pass in the href. And inside of the link, we want the text, which will be the name of the page. And of course, the link will need some styling, so we'll give it a class name. We want the text to be medium. We want it font. This is medium as well. On hover, I want the text to be. We'll go secondary, and we'll give it a little underline transition. And the duration will be 300. Ease in, out. Put the make that 14 pixels. And let me see. Do I think I need anything else? Yeah, to make it smaller. And we're just adding some styles to the text. Just carry for different device sizes. I don't think we're doing that. Okay. That should care for our menu item. Now, let's see. We have the menu button, we have the menu item, we have the logo. So now we're ready to round out or finish out the nav bar. Excuse me. So in order to get it to work properly, of course, we'll need to bring in a few more items. So first will be use state. This will be used to help manage the state of the menu. We'll also need to bring in the menu button that we just created, and we'll need to bring in the menu item as well. And here we'll create a state variable named menu open, and we'll create a set menu open. And this needs to be set to false because the state of it is not to be open initially. It's going to be closed unless you launch the site on a mobile device. And okay, so we have those, and we'll need another variable that we created earlier in the menu button named toggle menu, or another function, I should call it toggle menu. And and we'll say we want it to control this state, so we'll just go set menu, and we just want to change the state of it, so we'll go exclamation mark menu open, and this is just basically changing the state of this menu. So getting the syntax, add that there we go. All right, and now we'll need the menu items, the content for the menu items. That this cares for the button. So now let's care for the menu items. So we'll create a variable named menu items, and in it we will pass in a href, and we want the href to equal this home root, and we want to pass in text. The text will be home, and we'll add a couple more. Add 4. We'll make one gallery. We'll make this one about, and contact, and we'll add in the destination just to have it. All right, so this cares for the functionality that we'll need in order to help make some of the items in our nav bar work. So now we'll go ahead and continue out or finish out our JSX. So under the logo, let's add the menu button. And remember, this is a prop, and we'll need to pass some information into it. The first one is if the menu is open, and we'll just pass in menu open. And then the other one will be toggle menu, and we'll just pass in toggle menu as well, or here. Then under this div, we want to add the items. We want to add the menu items in addition to which will be in an unordered list, but we want to render it. We want it to display conditionally based on if the device is in the mobile view, or we want it to display conditionally. So if the device is in the mobile view, we're going to have one functionality work, and if it is in the desktop view, then we want to have another functionality work. So I'm going to type in this code now. Just bear with me. I want to make sure I don't have any errors. So in it, we'll give it a class name and not callback. And this one is going to have a temporal literal, and we'll just call it nav bar box. So just like to name these, and we'll go fix top. We'll set it to 0, right? 0. Width of and this is going to be the width of our screen. I normally like to have it take the entire viewport, but I think I'll just set it to maybe 300 this time, and we may change that depending on what it looks like. Background, let's set the background to let's go with light gray, and we'll go give it a little padding, and we'll go flex, and we want the flex direction of the items to be in a column, and we'll have them centered for styling and easy to read for the user, and we'll give it a duration of 300, ease in, out, and remember to make it responsive. So on medium, we'll position it relative. And we'll go medium flex row. Medium height will be set to auto. The width will be set to auto. Padding will be set to 0. And I think this cares for the styling piece. So bring this down so it'll be a little easier to read. So now dynamically we want to pass in if the menu is open. So menu open. If it is open, we want to transition, I think it's called translate. Translate from the X 0, and if it's closed, that's the positioning, and if it's open, we want it to take up the full. We want it to take up the full view coming from on the X-axis. Okay. Translate X-4. Save it, and underneath it, we want to render the, inside of this div, excuse me, we want to render the unordered list. And the unordered list will get a class name for styling as well, of flex. And the direction will be column. The width will be full. The text will be centered. We'll give it a little margin top. We'll go 60 pixels, but we could change that if we don't like it. Medium, we want it flex in a row. And we want the in medium margin top set to 0. And here, instead of hard coding the list items, we're going to dynamically use the menu item, component to render these menu items. So we'll go bracket and not bracket. Yes, we will go bracket and we'll go menu items. Menu items dot map, and we want the item and the index. I didn't have to spell that correctly, but I just like to do it. And here we'll go, we want to pass in the menu item. Okay, and remember the menu item is a prop, so we'll need to pass in the key, of course, and this is to make sure that our syntactically is correct from a React perspective. Well, this is to make sure that it's correct from a React perspective. And we'll pass in the href, which will be item.href, which this is the item here. Each item in the menu items, we're naming an item, and we want to grab the item href for the href. And for the text, we want to make it text, item.text. Okay, and that should care for the nav bar. And if we save the file and we see, okay, so we see the logo and the menu button or icon. If we click it, we see that the functionality is working. We see the X and the desktop version. Okay, so looks like we have a little bit of corrections to make. So let's see. Right here, let's make this flex column, and that, let's see, that moved the menu icon to the far right, which is where it should be. And I see that we still have the items listed there. Okay, so let's fix this first. So when we open the menu, we wanted this to take the entire page. So right here in the div where we have the nav bar dash box, set the height to full. And if we save it, okay, so now this is taking up the entire screen as we desire. Okay, and let's see. So this portion is working now. Hover effects working, and it's just the desktop. It's not taking up the entire screen. It's going in columns. Row. Okay, there we go. And I think I want to add a button. Maybe right here. Let's see something. Okay, yep, right here. So, well, we could have kept span. We'll make it a span. No, we'll make it a link. Just in case. And we'll just say members. And we'll give it an href back to the home route. And we'll give it a class name. And we'll style it with full height. We'll make it 42 pixels. A little padding on the x-axis. see what we get. And give it a BG primary. And border, we'll make it no, it's rounded. There we go. Let's make it like this. Okay, that'll work. In this version, that's what it looks like. Text. And let's go back to yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I think our nav bar is good to go. Now we'll work on the hero section of the header. So I think, yep, I have a hero image here. So what we'll do is we'll just add the image tag and we can close it. Excuse me. And we'll give it a href. We'll give it a source. Let's import hero from // public / should be hero.png. And I know we'll go hero here, and we'll need to add the height. So I think the height and the width for this, let's set it to 600. And we'll set the height to 400. And we have a class name. Yeah, let's style it a little bit. And we'll make the width full. We want it rounded. And we'll do a little shadow. Well, yeah. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's not bad. We need to change this Z index. Let's see. That is the nav bar. That should be here. So let's make this Z index 100. Okay. So, and we need to, our button is no longer here because of it, so we need to set that one to 1. Why is that not? Okay, so we'll come back and we'll fix that. Okay, but we do have this. Let me not get too sidetracked. Sorry about that. So we have the this is the nav bar. Here's what I want. So we have the class name here, and this is what it looks like on the desktop, and this is what it looks like on mobile. Okay, not bad. I think that works. Actually, let's make this text bigger. This is the same size. Let's make it 6XL. Okay, that's better. And let's see. Yeah, that works. Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right, so that finishes out the header. All right, so let's move on to our service section. So in the components folder, let's create a directory named service, and we'll add a file named service.js. And we'll add a template here. Let's save it, and back in our home or page.js, excuse me, let's import it. And here we see it here towards the bottom. Okay, so let's close this out, and in the service folder, let's add, we're gonna have the header, we'll have a description, and then we'll have 3 cards that distinguish the service that we offer. So instead of hard coding the 3 cards 3 times, I'm going to create a service item component that will be a prop, and we'll pass in the data. That way, if we want to add more items, we're able to do so, or if we want to change out the items, it's a lot easier. So in the service folder, let's create another file named serviceitem.js. And in this folder, we'll start with the basic React template, and we'll go ahead and import image from React. And we can remove, well, we can keep a div, keep the div, and inside the div, we'll need to give it a class name. And we'll set the background to be white. We'll give some padding. We'll make it rounded, large. We'll give some shadow. And in hover, we want shadow to go extra large. And we'll set the transition duration 300, and save it. And then here we'll go image. This is the styling part of we'll have the image up top, the styling part of the card or the item, and we'll need a src. This will be image src. We'll give it an alt text. We'll make the width 300, the height 200, and we'll give it a class. We'll give it a class name, and in the class name, we'll make the width full, and we'll make this rounded LG. Okay, let's save it, and we're gonna have H3. We said we were gonna have a title and description. So we'll make this a H2. Put an H there. H2, and pass this dynamically as a title. And then H2 will have a class name of text, Excel, font. And before I forget, this is going to be a, let's pass in the props needed. So it'll be an image source, alt text. We're going to have a title, description. Okay. This is the title. And now we just need a description. Put it in a P tag, brackets, description. And let's give this a class name as well. We'll make the text gray. We'll make it 800 and margin top of 2. So let's save this file, and now let's go in our service.js folder, and here, we only need to bring in the image, I think. We'll bring in image and service item. Okay, and give me just a second. I'm gonna add in some items so that we can dynamically display them. So these are the services that we offer, and let me go over what we have here. So I added images into the public directory, and we're going to I imported them into my service.js file, and we're going to dynamically pass these into the service array here, and this will be passed to the component once we create the service, or once we loop through the services and we create a service item for each service that we offer. And we have the alt text, the title, and the description. And then inside of the component, the service component itself, we'll go ahead and we'll remove our div as we typically do, and we'll replace it with a section. And then inside of the section, we'll give it a class name. And we'll set the background to secondary, I think. And we'll give it some padding of 200. Let's see what this looks like. And we don't want to give it padding, we want to give it padding of 20, not 200. Okay. Yeah, I think that works. So in this section, let's create a div with a class name, container. Let's make the margin auto, and we'll have our text centered. And we'll start with a H2. And let's go ahead and let's do this. Let's add in some text. Let's say discover our cleaning services. And so we give us a class name of, we'll make the text 5XL maybe. Yeah, that works. Okay. And we'll have the font semi-bold. Alright. Bottom 6. Text and gray. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make it cursor. Okay. And let's add our description next. And we'll say here are our specialty cleaning services. Here are cleaning specialties. Cleaning specialties. Okay. And we'll give it, let's give it a class name, and we'll have the text extra large. Yep, it's a little bigger, so it'll work. And we'll make the text color. Let's make this gray. 500 maybe? No, let's go black. Okay. And we'll go margin bottom. Let's go 8. Alright. Now we'll have these in we could do flex, but we'll do a grid layout here, and this is where we're going to loop through. We're going to create the grid, and then inside of the grid we're going to create a service item for each service that we offer. So we'll go div with a class name, we'll go grid columns 1, and then on big devices we'll have 3, grids versus 1, 3, and then we'll give a gap of 8. We'll save it and do a little bit of JavaScript. We'll go services.map, and for each item we'll call it service, and we need to give an index, and what we want is a service item for each service, and we know service items get props with it, so we need to pass in the index. We need to pass the image source, which service dot image source, and once I save, you see it pop in. And then we need the alt text. We do service.alt text, and we need the title. That ain't it. Service.title. Okay, bedroom cleaning, yep. Kitchen, living room, okay. And we need a description. And if we save, I think we're good to go. All right, yeah, this works. Okay, so with the service section cared for, let's move on to the next section, and this will be a room section. And inside of the components folder, we won't add this into a separate directory, we'll just make it a file. But go ahead and create a file named roomsection.js. And we'll do RFCE just to add in a the template, and we'll change this to a section. And now in the page.js above the footer, let's import the newly created component. And if we save the file, we see that it is created. So we can go ahead and close that out for now. And first I will start with importing the images that I recently added into the public directory that will need to display onto the page. So I'm not going to bore you with me typing each one of those out, so give me just a moment. All right, so I have those added now. So we'll be able to leverage those images within this section. Next, we'll want to add a reusable component for the actual card or the item that we'll be displaying. So we'll create a variable or a function, or excuse me, we'll create a room.item, and in it we'll pass in some props. We want to pass in props to it, excuse me. We want to pass in a image src, a alt text, excuse me, and we want to also pass in the title. T-I-T-L-E. Okay, and we'll create the rest here, and give me just a moment. And within it we want to have a span, and well, I guess we could make this a link or a tag, it's up to you. And the span, we want to give a class name, and inside of the class name we want to add group. That way we'll be caring for the group of items when we add some text. And we also want to add position of relative and overflow hidden. Okay, and now inside of the span we want to have a div, and we'll go class name, and in it we'll go group and hover, and we want this to scale to 105, and we want the transition to transform, and we want duration to be 300, and we'll go ease in out. All right, and inside of the div we want to have a image, so we'll need to import that now. And the image will have a src, and this will be image src. We'll give it a class name, The class name will be, we'll give it a width, a height. We'll give it, we want it to cover the area. Transform. And we want the group of items on hover, we want it to scale to 105, just a slight effect, and we'll give it an alt, and we'll make it alt text. Okay, that cares for the image. Now the image, well, now the item will also have some text. So underneath the div, let's add another div, and inside of it we'll go class name, and we want this to be absolute since we're using relative, and we want the positioning of this to be at the bottom. We'll go left half the way, and we'll go translate on the x-axis. We'll go 2/4. We'll text be black. Medium. We want the casing to be upper for this. Text to be extra large. On medium devices, we'll go text 2XL. And let me see, we probably should have some opacity. We'll set that to 0. Group hover. Okay. Let's see, this should cover everything if I didn't misspell anything. Transition, opacity, looks good, looks good, looks good. Okay. And now inside of the div, we want to add in the title that we have there. So we'll go, is that capital T? Yep, title. All right. Actually, let's make this lowercase just to keep it consistent with the case, the proper casing it should be. All right. So now underneath the room item, inside of, well, we can actually go above. I'm going to add in inside of the room section, I'm going to add in I'm going to add in a list of rooms. So underneath the room item, I'm going to add in the items that will be looped through to display this particular section versus hard coding them. So with that cared for, now we can go ahead and work on the actual coding of the room section. Let me bring this up a little bit more, excuse me. So inside of the section tag, we'll have a class name. We'll give it padding on the y-axis of 16 and on the x-axis of 3. And you'll notice that this updated. And inside of it, I'm going to have to remove it for a second here. We'll go div, and inside the div, we'll give a class name, and inside of it, container. And we want to make sure that this automatically provides margin in the appropriate places based on the sizing. So we want to start with the title, and we'll say results. We'll say finishes in room. We'll say results in room, just so we can have some text on the screen, and we have that here. Now inside of the H2 we want to have a class name, and we'll go with the text being we'll go 4XL, and we'll go on small devices. Let's set the text size to 46 pixels. I think that's what we've been going with. I probably should have made that reusable, but I will next time. We'll make the text center, and we'll make the color of it primary. There we go. That looks pretty good. And we'll give it a little bit of margin bottom, but we can change that if need be. So let's save it, and we have our rooms displayed here. Now inside, or underneath I should say, the H2, let's add another div, and we'll go class name in it. And we want to have a grid layout, so we'll go grid. And for this one we'll go a 10 column layout, and on medium devices we want it to shrink to 2, or when it's sized down we want it to shrink to 2. And we'll give some padding on the y-axis of 10, and in it we'll start with the p tag. And I'm not going to bore you with typing out a description, but I'm going to add in a quick description. Just give me just a moment. Okay, so here's the text that I just copied and pasted in. And let's style it a little bit. So we'll give it a class name. We'll make the opacity 60, and we'll make the font light. And we'll go small devices. We want the text to be large. So let's save it, and let's take a look at what we have. Okay, doesn't look bad. I think I want to distinguish that first letter, so I think this is first letter. F-I-R-S-T. I think you can go text. Let's make this one, is that 4? Let's make it 4XL. There we go. And let's make the first letter, and we want to make font bold. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first letter is capitalized and it's bold. Perfect. So underneath the P tag, we want to have a list of items. Well, we want to have before we get to the grid, we're going to have another list of items that'll be displayed. These are just going to be images that we'll get from pixels.com. That way we can show a picture or an image next to the text. We could have done SVGs or maybe some icons, but I just kept it simple and stuck with pictures. So we'll add in underneath the P tag, we'll add in an unordered list. The unordered list will have a class name, and we'll go padding on the Y. Small, let's update it. On the Y, we'll go padding on the X of 7, and background color we'll make secondary. And within inside of our unordered lists, we will have some list items, and of course it will have a class name of grid. We want the items centered, and grid columns, we want that set to 32 pix auto. And we also want to give it some margin on the y-axis. We'll make it 1. And inside of each list item, we're going to have a small image next to a description. So I'm just going to do a traditional image HTML tag for this, because I'm going to get this from pixel.com. That way I don't have to register the pixel URL in the in the next config file. If you were and you were using the image element, then you would need to register it within here, saying that, hey, I'm going to allow this external source. Not a big deal, but I just to keep it simple, I'm just going to do a traditional, but before I go to pixel, let me go ahead. We'll add in our alt, and we'll just name it. We'll name it individually. So the first image is going to be a broom, and let's go ahead and grab it now. We'll go pixel and broom, and I'm just going to grab it. And I'll add it in here, and you see we have an image displayed here. So now we'll add a span just to give it some text next to it, and we'll say hands-on cleaning, and we'll go class name here, and the span will have a class name of text white, and we'll go font light and give it a margin to the left. Okay. Let me see that layer. There we go. Two column. That layout is off. Okay, and let's go ahead and add in two more, excuse me. Something is off. Okay. You know what? This should be a gap. So let's add so let's see, yeah, the layout is a little off. So let me see, should be 10, this should be gap. And let's see, 32 pix auto. That way it automatically adjusts. Okay, now it's listing it. And if we add in two more, okay, that looks right. And okay, now we're talking. All right, let me update these images really quick. Okay, so this is just a little section here for styling purposes. So now let's add the grid. So underneath this div, the div for this section, let's add another div, and we'll give it a class name of grid, and we'll go on small devices. We want the grid to be 2 columns. And on large, we want 3. And we want a little gap, so we'll go grid gap, and we want the gap, we'll make it 8 pixels, and we'll go from there if we don't like it. So what we want to do is we want to loop through this array, and we want to display this information with the room item that we created. So we'll add the brackets to add a little JavaScript, and we'll go rooms.map, and we'll name it room, and we'll include the index, and we're going to use the arrow function, of course. And for each item or each room, we want to display a room item, and we know this is a prop and we need to pass some information into it. So we will pass in the key, which will be index. We'll pass in the image source, which is room.image source. We'll pass in the alt text or alt title, excuse me, and this is room.alt text. This is room.alt text, and we'll give it a title, and this will be room.title. Okay, if we save it and we take a look, we see that we have a nice 2-column grid layout on small devices, and on large devices we see that it grows a little, and it should be a 3-column columns 3. There we go. And there we go. So here's what it looks like on a desktop with the 3-column grid layout, and you see we have the hover effect, and you see that it is displaying what's been cleaned based on the image. And let's add a cursor here just to there we go. Okay, so with this update, I think we can move on to the next section, and this will be a testimonial section, just showing testimonies from satisfied customers. All right. So now we'll move on to the testimonial section. So in our components folder, let's add a file named Testimonial Section.js. Okay, and we'll add RFCE here. Change the div to a section. Save it, go into our page.js. Underneath the room, we'll add testimonial section. Save it, and there we go, testimonial section. Okay, so we can close this, and inside of our testimonial section, let's go ahead and bring in, we're going to have an avatar. This avatar is going to be to represent the customer that left us a testimony. Maybe I'll connect this to a backend and dynamically pull that based on actual reviews that's left. But for right now, we're just going to use an avatar for each customer. So we'll go ahead and bring that in now. Import avatar from public / and we'll also need a couple of React icons. These icons will just be to represent that this is a quote from someone. It's just the quote icon, so we'll go FA quote. I think it's the left one. Yeah, it should be the left one. All right. And now that we have those in, we could add a separate component for the testimony. And what this is basically going to represent a testimony card. But I'm going to keep it within this file since we're just going to keep it a little simple. So we'll create a testimony, a testimonial, and in it we want to pass in props. And it's going to take a name, a role, and content. And that's the name would be the customer's name. The role will be their role, whether it is a consumer or if it's a homeowner, I should say, or if it's a business owner. We'll be able to distinguish that. That way there's a difference. And also the content would just be the message that they left. So in this, we want to have a div, and we'll give it a class name. We want the background to be white. Give it a little bit of padding. We want it rounded, and we'll have it rounded large. And we want a little bit of shadow, and we want to transform on hover, and we'll translate on the y-axis. I think it's -y-1. And hover, we want the shadow to become extra large. Okay. And module not found. Oh, duh. It's not dash, it's dot. There we go. And we'll just come back down here. It's not gonna show anything just yet. Sorry about that. Okay. And inside of this is just setting like the platform. Now this div will set the direction of the items, and we want a flex direction. We want them centered, and we'll give a little margin bottom. And first we'll have the quote left, and we're going to style this. We'll make the color primary, and we'll give a little margin right of 2. And we'll save it. Okay. And underneath the quote icon, we're going to have our some content. So we'll go class name, and we want the text to be extra large, font to be semi-bold, and I think we'll change the color to secondary. We may change it back, but let's just see what it looks like first. Secondary. Okay. And we need to pass in the content here. Okay, so that cares for the content. Now underneath this initial, the first div after the p tag, we're going to add a second div, and here we'll add a class name to this div, and inside of it we'll make the items flex, and we want the items to be centered. And from here we'll give another div inside of it with a class name, and we want this to shrink, give it some automatic responsiveness based on the size of the viewport in our container. So inside of this particular div, here's where we want to have the image. So let's go ahead and add in the image now, import it, excuse me. And we'll add the image tag, and we'll give it a src of avatar, and we'll give it a class name with width, and you always want to do a height, and this is going to be rounded to full. Let's save it. And what do we have anything yet? Nope, not just yet. Image avatar, no, we're not using it yet. So okay, that cares for the avatar. Now underneath the div with the avatar, we're going to add another div, and this is going to hold the actual content. We'll give a class name, and that class name will have margin left. We'll start with the p tag, and it will have the customer's name, and we'll give the p tag a class name with text large. We want the font to be semi-bold, and we'll use text dim of gray. Okay, and underneath the p tag we're going to add a span, and in it we want to give it the row. We want to pass in the row prop, or the row, and inside the span we'll have a class name of text to be small, and we want the text gray, and I'll set the color to 500. Now actually, you know what? We don't want it gray. Let's make the text dark gray. We're going to make this text dark and gray. And we'll save the file, and that's going to care for the testimonial item. Now I'm going to add in an array of testimonies that we can loop through. So here is an array. Here's some testimonies that I took the time to type out and add. I wasn't going to do all that right now. Feel free to grab these from the description. The GitHub link will be below with the full source code. Otherwise, add your own, or you're more than welcome to pause the video and create your own. You actually could have put this outside of this function. I just set it inside of it, but it's fine. But anyway, after you have that, now we'll update the return statement. So our section, we're going to give a class name, and here we want to have, we're going to set the background to the header image so that it is the same image as this. And let's save it. And you can see that we already kind of have the image displaying there, so that's perfect. And let's add in the rest of the class name. So we'll go with the background. We want the background to be centered, and we want it to cover. These are standard properties that you add to a these are standard properties that you add to a class when you are setting a background, when you set an image as a background, excuse me, just to make sure that it is positioned correctly and that it is responding as you desired, and it's not repeating itself, or it's not covering the entire background. So I probably should have made this its own class or own component, and in the next video I will, because we've typed this out more than once. And a good rule of thumb is anytime you type code more than once, you generally should make it a component or make it reusable. That way you're not typing the same thing more than once. But this is a fairly small project. It's okay, but we'll make sure that we continue to improve on that in the future. So inside of the section, we want to add another div, and we want to give it a class name of container. And we want to set the margin to auto, and we want the text to be centered, and we want to make this relative. We're going to give some absolute positioning, and we'll give it a z index of 10. And inside of it, we want to add a h2. This h2 is going to say what are testimonies. We'll just call it testimonies. Testimonies. And the testimonies, you can see it appear there. Hope I spelled that right. We'll give it a class name, and the class name will have, we'll make the text, we'll need to care for the size first, 3XL. Then we want to care for the look. We'll make it semi-bold. Semi-bold. We'll change the color to secondary. I think this is IES. This is gonna irk me. I may Google this. MONIES. There we go. I think that's what that is. If not, let me know in the comments. Text secondary, and we'll give it a little bit of margin. We can update it if need be. Okay. So after the H2, let's go ahead and add in the container, or the grid container that's going to hold the testimonies that we have here. So we'll add a div, and we'll give it a class name of grid and grid calls, and let's add the number of calls this time of 1. And on medium devices, we want the grid calls to shrink down to 2. And on large devices, we want it to be 3. It's just a easy way to care for responsiveness. And if we save it, we see, well, we won't see anything yet because we don't have anything inside of it, but we'll see it once we loop through our testimony. So we're going to loop through that now. So we'll go testimonials .map, and we'll call these testimonial, and we'll pass in the index, and inside of it we're going to start with the testimonial. Let's close that up. And it is a prop, so we need to pass some things to it. So we'll start with the key, and that's going to be the index, and the name is going to be testimonial name, and then the role is going to be testimonial.role, and the content is going to be testimonial.content. And if we save this, okay, it looks like they're not popping in, so let's make sure this is correct. Yep, oh, that looks good. Okay, give me a second, everybody. That doesn't matter. Oh, here we go. This shouldn't be brackets, this should be parentheses. And boom, there you go. Our cards have popped in, the hover effect is there, but this should be a different layout. This is large, it's 3. There we go. Single column, and on the large we get 3. Let's make that text bigger. We made it 3, let's make it 5. There we go. Alright, and we have the hover effect, and on large we get, on small we get 1, medium we get, and on medium we get 2. Okay, so it seems that everything is working as designed, and we never did fix this. Let's fix that really quick. Let's save this file. Let's go to our header, nav bar, menu button, and right here, I think you have to do this Z index separate. So let's go style, and inside of it we'll go Z, and we'll set it to 1000. There we go. Boom. Okay, and still there, and here, boom. All right, we are cooking with grease. Okay, so I think the next section we'll add is a contact section. All right, so in our components folder, let's add a file named contact us.js, and we'll do RFCE. Let's update this div to a section. Let's save it. And in the page.js, under testimonials, let's add contact us. Yeah, there we go. And save it. And boom, we have it there. All right. So we can close that. And won't be much to the contact us section. Just going to have a section with a contact us form. Thought about adding a little bit more to it, but I didn't think that that'll probably be necessary, so I didn't want to make it overkill. But first, excuse me, let's make the background primary, and we'll give it some padding on the y-axis of 16, and there we go. And inside of it, we want to start with a H2, and we'll have it say contact us. And in the H2, we'll give it a class name, and we'll have the text. Let's make it 5XL, and let's make the font semi-bold. And the text here will be white. Excuse me. And margin bottom will be 6. Okay. And we probably should make that text center. Well, you know what? I'm gonna need to center everything. So why don't I copy this and add a div above it and give it a class name, and we'll make container margin to auto and text center. Now let's save. Now let's add it, and there we go. Now underneath the H2, let's add a P tag, and we'll just say have a question. Leave it below. We will get back to you soon. Have that there, okay? And let's give it a class name, and let's style it, the text to be large. Yeah, that looks good. And let's make this text secondary. There we go. And we'll set the opacity to 75. See what that looks like. That'll work. And we'll give it a little margin bottom of 8. All right. And underneath the P tag, we'll have a form. And won't be anything, we won't be connecting it to a back end or anything, but we'll set the max width to medium, and we'll set the margin to auto. And we'll put each element in the form inside of a div just for styling purposes. So just bear with me while I type this out. But we'll have a label, and we'll give it we should be putting a 4 and all that good stuff, but I'm just gonna give it a class name of block. Make the text white. We'll make it small. Font will be medium. MEDIUM, and margin bottom will be, let's just set it to 2. And inside of the div, underneath the label, let's add an input. Be sure to close it. The input, will make it type text. I know this really doesn't matter too much right now, but I'm just kind of used to it. And we'll give it a class name. We'll give it some width. Okay. And we'll give it some padding on the X axis, padding on the Y. We'll make that 2. We'll make it rounded. And we want the background to be light. Yep. And let me think. Let's make that light. Let's make it secondary. Yeah, let's make it secondary. And let me see. Do we want to add anything else here? Let's go with focus. Let's go ring 2, NG2. And we'll go focus mode CUS. We'll go ring dash primary. Okay. And it is not within and it is not within the containers. So let's see. Why are you not centered? Okay, so it is not centered. Let's see. It should be Yeah, it helps if you make that a max auto, not max auto. Okay, there we go. So what we'll do is we'll just copy this and we'll change this to email. And change this to email. And we have our email form, and we'll have one more form for the question. So we'll go div, class name, margin bottom 4, the label, change this to question, make that a capital, thank you. And let's add in a text area. And the text area, let's give it rows of 4. There we go. And let's give it, tell you what, we're gonna do it like that. Let's do class name, and let's go with the full. Let's do this. There you go. With the full, perfect. And think we'll go pattern on the X of 4, pattern on the Y of 2, and let's go rounded medium. And on hover, no, we won't do anything with the hover. Let's make the background secondary. And we'll add the focus and focus ring. This way, when you click on the, when you click in the input, you get a different response back from it. A little more traditional response versus so choppy. And outside of the div, let's add a button to submit it. We'll just name it submit. Give it a class name. And to style the button a little bit, let's have it pop up, there we go. And to style the button a little bit, we'll go pattern on the X of 6, Y of 2, ground we'll go secondary. I think this color scheme looks pretty good. I hope it's not too bad. Text we'll make white. Rounded we'll go medium. And give it a little hover. When you hover, change the background to primary. Change the background to primary. And transition. And we'll go colors, duration, 300. Save it. There we go. It just blends in, and that's fine. And when we go full screen, still looks good. Okay, so last but certainly not least will be the footer. We'll go ahead and work on that. Okay, so now it is time to tackle our footer. So we'll go ahead and bring up the footer.js file, and I will start with our imports. So let's go ahead and import from React. We're gonna have a few of these to bring in icons, but the good thing is they're all FA, so just hang in there with me. So the first one is gonna be Facebook. The next one is gonna be Instagram. The next one is gonna be Twitter. Oh, they got Twitch, okay. Next one is Pinterest. We need a map marker. We need a phone. Yeah, there it is. We need an envelope. There we go. And I think that is all that we need. Okay. So now we could put these in separate directories or files, but I'm just going to add them here. So the first thing we'll add is a footer link. And this is just to help make the code more modular and not have so much of it. It's going to take in a href and a text, and we'll be sure to do a parentheses this time, and we'll give it a tag, Inside of the A tag, we want to pass in an icon, and for the A tag, excuse me, we'll give it a href and of course a class name. And for the class name, we will have we'll start with giving it the text color, and the color will be primary. When we hover, we want the text to change to secondary. And we'll have a little transition, give it a duration of 300, ease in out. Okay, save our file, and let's add footer back in just to have something there. Okay, and we have the footer link. Now we'll need to add a social icon, so we'll go const footer social link, or social link, excuse me. So now we need to add in a footer social link, and this is going to be a prop as well. We'll pass in an href and a icon. And sorry, I made this icon. This should be text. There we go. This is icon, and inside of our function, we'll have another A tag with an href. The href for this one will be href, and I probably should have done the same thing here. I don't know why no one didn't tell me. And inside of the A tag, we'll have a class name, of course. We'll have the text here be primary. No, we'll make this one gray. Make it gray, make it light gray. That we have a light gray. Yeah, let's have it light gray. Yep. And with the class name here on hover, we'll make the text secondary, and we'll go transition, duration, 300, ease in, out. Close the A tag, and inside of the A tag here, we'll add the icon. And we'll need one more. We'll add one for footer contact item. And these are just the items that will be within these columns versus typing them out and copying them 3 times. I'm just going to make them reusable so we can loop through them, and if you decided to use this and deploy it, it'll be easy for you to update it as well. So inside of this this particular property, to get a class name of flex, the items will be centered, and we'll pass in a spam. The spam will get text, and we'll need one for icon as well. And the first one, we'll give it a class name of text gray. We'll make it 600. The second one, we'll give it a class name. We'll make it text. I'll make it black just to call it black. I could have just left it blank. And we'll give it margin left of 2. So be sure to save the file, and that should care for the links. We have the footer link, the social link, and the contact item. And inside the return statement, let's go ahead and let's create a variable to store the year. We want to pass the year in our footer, and versus hard coding it, let's make it dynamic so that it automatically updates based on the year. You don't have to do this. You could hard code it. It's no big deal, especially if you're not deploying it and it's just for you. But I figured we can get in the habit of doing it the right way. So now inside of the footer, let's give it a class name, and we'll make the background gray. And we'll set it to 100 and give it padding on the y-axis of 12. And if we look, we see that it is beginning to style. And we'll remove the footer for now. Let's give it a container, or div, excuse me. And inside of it, we need to put it in a container. And let's give the margin of auto, and let's make the text center. Now inside of this div, we'll have another div and we'll give it a class name. This is going to be the layout. So we want a grid layout. We want grid columns of 1. And on medium devices, we want the grid columns to be 2. And on large devices, can you guess? We actually want it to be 4 on large devices. And we'll set the gap to 8 just for spacing. Save it. And you don't see anything because I removed the footer word, but that's fine. So inside of that div, we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with the title or the header, so to speak, of the section. So we'll give this a class name, and the class name will have a margin bottom of 8. And on medium devices, we want that margin bottom to go to 0. And we'll start with a H2. And we'll call this VKS cleaning. VKS cleaning. And inside of the H2, we'll give it a class name to style this a little bit. We'll make the text extra large, and we'll make the font semi-bold. And we'll give it a margin bottom of 4. Save the file, and you can see that it is showing there. And underneath the H2, we'll give it a P tag, and let's just add in, made it PS. Let's just add in some text. We'll have it say the ultimate cleaning experience, one-stop shop for your cleaning needs. For all your cleaning needs, we'll say that. And the P tag will have a class name. This class name will be, we'll make this text color, we'll make it light gray. No, we'll make it light. There we go. All right. And we have that cared for. So now underneath the div we just created, we'll add another div. And this div will be for the footer links. So this will be a column. So we'll need to give it a class name, and we'll give it a margin bottom of 8. And on medium devices, we'll give it a margin bottom of 0. And we'll start with a H3. This H3 will say quick links. That will be the header of this column. And you can see it there. And we'll give this the H3 a class name just to style it a little. We'll make the text extra large. The font will be semi-bold. And we'll give it a margin bottom of 4. And inside of the div, but underneath the quick links, we'll have an unordered list with a class name of space on the y-axis of 2. And we'll go ahead and create our list items. And the first list item will be, well, all list items, the first column will be for the footer links, as I mentioned. And for the footer link, all we need to add is a href, and it's just going to be pound. And we'll also need to add the text of about us. And remember, footer links take 2 props, text and href, and we want 3. So I will copy this to 3, and we'll change this to, actually we want 4. We'll change this to, we can make these anything we want. This is about us. We'll go to events. We'll say we have a blog and membership if you want to have a monthly membership program with us. And save the file, and there, that's what we have there. Okay, looking pretty good. And we'll need to add in the next column. So we actually can, let's see, so we'll need to change the styling a little bit, because I remember with icons it's a little different. So we'll need a div, and we can actually copy this div here and paste it here because it's the same thing. excuse me, and inside of the this particular div, we want to have a header, and this header is going to be follow us. This is where we will list the social icons, and you can see it is listed there. And we'll go ahead and bring in a another div. We'll go ahead and bring in, and underneath the H3, but inside of that div, we'll add another div, and we'll give it a class name, and the class name will have flex, and we want the items to be justify center. The items will be centered as well. On medium devices, we want the justify to be start, and the space to be, well, space on the x-axis to be 4. And inside of this div, we are going to have we're going to change this from a div to unordered list, because this should be the list items, and so this should be a unordered list. I'm sorry about that. And inside of this unordered list, let's add list items. The first list item will be this will be the footer contact item. This will be how you contact us, and we'll have a icon. It takes props, of course. The first prop will be FA map marker, and the map marker will give this item some styling as well. Well, actually, no, we don't need to give it any styling. What we'll do is we'll give it some text. We have to give it text, and we'll say this is at 123 Elm Street, and we'll call this in Cleaning, Georgia. That's the city and state. Let's save it, and yeah, that works. All right, and we can copy this list item, and we'll just update it. We're going to have 3 of these items. So we got a marker, we have a phone, and our phone number is 123-999-0001, and we save it. Okay, and I think the last one was an envelope. So the envelope should be to contact us for an email. So we'll remove this, and we'll make it FA envelope. Okay, and we'll say we'll just put info email, and we'll say email info at vks.com. Save it. Okay, that works. Now I want these to be laid out in a column versus a row, so let me add in flex column. Okay, and that looks, let's give it some space on the Y. That's a little tight. 2. Okay, yeah, that works. Now we need one more list item section. So underneath the, actually, you know what? Let's change this from, this doesn't make any sense. This should have been social, but I added those items. So let's change that. Let's change this from follow us to contact us. This makes more sense. These are ways to contact us, not via social media. And underneath that div, we'll add another div, and we'll give it a class name. And actually, yep, let's just copy this, and we can copy this title, and we'll replace the contact us with follow us. And here we will have a unordered list, And this unordered list will have a a class name as well. And you should be able to just copy this in, and we need a list item. And these are going to be our social icons. So these were footer, social link. And let's go ahead and close it. And they get props as well. They get a href and a pound. Well, they get a href and they also get an icon. And the first one will be Facebook. Let's save this. Change the color of this. There we go. And instead of that, let's just make it primary. Okay, that works. And we have the Facebook, and I think we have, how many more do we have? 1, 2, 3 more. And the first one, or the next one, will be Instagram. The next one will be, what else did we bring in? We brought in Twitter. And we brought in Pinterest. And we can change this from a column to just flex. There we go. And if we, wait a minute, that is a smidge off. And if we save it, okay, so it's a little off right there. So I think instead of putting these in a list, I'll put these in a div. And instead of these list items here, go. And okay, so it is still a smidge off. Actually, I don't think we need all of this. I think we can go, let's go flex, justify, center. This gets us there, okay. And we can add, let's make the item center. And we'll add some space. All right, now let's look at it. Okay, much better. Okay, so there you have it. This is our landing page for our cleaning service website using Nextjs and Tailwind. It is fully responsive, and I think we are good to go. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy today's video, feel free to give me a like. I would certainly appreciate it. Consider subscribing. I would genuinely appreciate that as well. And if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.